Good morning. Welcome to the Marion County Board of Commissioners meeting. It's Wednesday, August 26th, 2015. We're in the Senator Hearing Room at Courthouse Square in Salem, Oregon, and we will begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, it's the last Wednesday in August. Summer is almost over. So public comment is first on our agenda, and we don't have anyone signed up. And anyone want to speak that didn't sign up? Okay, we'll move to consent calendar. It's kind of a short one. Commissioner Cameron, is it your turn?
I believe it is. Madam Chair, thank you. I'll move that under the consent calendar and business services and Human Resources that we approve a recommendation to adjust the salary range upward for the Assistant Director of Juvenile Department. Under the Treasurer, approve the following resolutions. First, eliminating the petty cash account in the Assessor's Office Administrative Division. Second, reducing the petty cash account in Legal Counsel from $50 to $25. I hope you can handle that, Gloria.
50% reduction. Oh.
Yeah. And reducing petty cash account in the Sheriff's Office Administrative Division from $200 to $100.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Gloria, are you okay with this petty cash?
We're big spenders, but we'll try to hold the line, do our part.
All right, very good. All right, any further discussion?
Well, if you need a loan or something, come over. I can float you.
Money.
Right, exactly. Those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. These items are approved. We have two items under action, and then we do have a public hearing noticed at 9:30. So the first item, both items are under Public Works. The first item is consider approval of an order adopting changes to the Solid Waste Management Advisory Council bylaws. And we have Jeff Bickford and Bill Brower, who is chair of our Solid Waste Management Advisory Council, that had a long meeting last night, as usual.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeff Bickford, the Environmental Services Division Manager for Marion County Public Works, and I have with me, as the Commissioner mentioned, Bill Brower, the Chair of our Solid Waste Management Advisory Council. The Board of Commissioners actually created our, what we call SWAMAC, but our Solid Waste Management Advisory Council back in 1989. The Council's purpose is to investigate and consider various programs and issues related to solid waste management, such as various waste reduction, reuse, recycling, and disposal programs, and then make recommendations to the Board of Commissioners based upon those discussions. The current council consists of 16 members, which is 8 laypersons, 4 industry representatives, which cover the disposal industry, the collection industry, the recycling industry, and then the compost and transfer sector. And as well as we have 4 other represented positions on the council, which include a Chamber of Commerce position, somebody that represents the housing industry, somebody that represents public health in the medical community, and lastly, a community organization. The council is governed by a set of bylaws which have naturally changed over the years. For example, the council actually used to consist of 22 members for many years. And that was actually reduced to 16 members back in 2005. And there's been various other little minor changes, and there actually hasn't been a change to our bylaws since 2005. Our current bylaws allow that only a layperson may occupy the role of the chair or vice chair of the council. While generally this has worked so far fairly well, it has also meant that we've had some of the same members that have had served numerous terms as that chair or vice chair as is rotated through, and it's particularly for some of our longer serving members. However, it also has meant that occasionally it's been difficult because we have a more limited pool to get a volunteer to take on this role. So due to this, the concept of whether to consider allowing other members to also be eligible to serve as chair and vice chair was actually brought forth and discussed by the council this late winter and spring. And I'm going to let Mr. Brower talk a little bit about the process.
Okay, thank you. Over a course of several months, the council discussed.
Bill,
with
could
the-
you just pull the microphone a little bit
Okay.
closer to you so that it picks it up for the TV? Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, over the course of several months, the council discussed who they felt should be eligible to become the chair, because it's been a little more difficult to get somebody to volunteer to serve. So the options were discussed, from leaving it as is to having everyone on the council be eligible to serve as vice chair or chair. The 4 industry representatives were reluctant to serve as chair, as they were concerned about the perception of the industry leading the whole process, or a conflict of interest, or whatever. After much back and forth discussion, the council made and passed the motion at the June 23rd meeting to recommend to the board that the bylaws be amended such that members that could fill the organization be eligible to serve as chair and vice chair of SWAMAC. And those groups would be the Chamber of Commerce, the housing industry, public health and medical, and the community organization, because we felt that there wasn't any reason why the members representing these organizations couldn't serve. So with this, it is our recommendation that the proposed changes to our bylaws be accepted.
Thank you. So how many layperson members are, I know there's 8 slots, but how many of those slots are filled currently?
Currently, we have 6 of those 8 filled.
Right. And at the time, I think we were looking at the bylaws there, you were still trying to fill slots, right? So,
Correct. Actually, we had, I think, 1 or 2 less, and we've had some new members that have been in since this discussion
right.
began.
So I remember Bob Anderson was chair for the 20 millionth time, and then it was going to Thomas Smith, who'd been chair for
A couple
19 million times, and so, and then Bill stepped forward, and you've been on how long now?
I'm in my 2nd year.
Right, so not that long. So thank you for stepping forward for leading, but it was problematic, and they were kind of joking back and forth that they just changed chairmanship back and forth. So question came up, why is it that the bylaws only allow laypersons, and why would it be that somebody from the Chamber of Commerce or Public Health would lead the Solid Waste Management Council in a direction that would lead them astray? And so I think this is a really good change. It makes sense. You got a few other cleanup things in here that are pretty technical. So,
Correct.
yeah. So
Yeah,
thank you for bringing this
I'm pretty
forward.
sure the ones that are on these groups that we opened up were open to becoming vice chair as well.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I do have a couple, and Bill was absolutely right. And I hate to admit that I was around at that time, but they're very concerned that the industry people would just dominate it and take directions different than perhaps the county would want. I don't think that would have happened, but that was their fear. But I'm not quite clear. I thought I heard Bill say that, can the industry under this be part of it? Be an officer or not? They still
No.
can, but it looks like in one it says that they can. Yeah, in 10A1.
I think
That says, that's 5B is business industry, so that's Chamber of Commerce, Housing and Medical Community Public Health. And then the solid waste system representatives are 5C. So that's the recycling, collection, disposal, transfer station.
So they are not eligible.
So they're not eligible, right?
Because here, when I read it here, it just says business industry, and I thought I was hearing it both ways.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm fine with it, and the other thing that's, however it turns out, it's nominated by the whole committee and then turned to us for recommendation. It's pretty surely it won't come and won't be approved if there's some domination or some direction that we're not happy with. So I don't have any problem with this at all.
And I think the solid waste system people were more than happy not to be chair, right? I mean,
That is
It
correct.
wasn't like they were concerned that they didn't get that bite at the apple,
Yes, they would prefer not to be.
right?
Yeah.
Any other comments or?
No, so just so I can clarify, this is first time I've seen a revision of these bylaws. It looks like 10 years ago was the last time, so. What we're doing is we're adding 3 positions, just so I can be clear, we're adding 3 positions that would technically,
It'll be 4 positions will be added to being eligible.
Right, we're not adding any people to the council, that's a technical change. Instead of 6 laypersons plus a chair and vice chair, it's just 8 laypersons.
so under business and industry 5B, there's 3 positions. Are we adding another?
No, then it'd be 5D was a community organization, which existed previously.
Right.
But they are
Okay,
within the
okay,
DUSB
but they weren't eligible before.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
Do we have a motion?
I will. Madam Chair, I move that we approve the order that adopts changes to the Solid Waste Management Advisory Council bylaws.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the revised bylaws. Those in favor say aye.
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 They are approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is to consider approval of a resolution initiating amendments to the Marion County Code Title 16 Urban Zone Code and schedule a public hearing for September 23rd, 2015. And that's Joe Fenimore.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
For the record, Joe Fenimore. This item before you today is to consider a resolution to initiate an amendment to the Urban Zone Code. As you know, on August 12th, you adopted Ordinance 1357 that allows and regulates the keeping of chickens in single-family residential and urban development zones inside urban growth boundaries. The Urban Zone Code at 1625-200A, which lists accessory structures and uses permitted on any lot in any zone. Under item 11 of that section, it states that no birds or fur-bearing animals other than pets and no livestock, poultry, or beekeeping are permitted in residential zones. In order to reconcile the zone code with Ordinance 1357, a zone code amendment is needed. Ordinance 1357 becomes effective November 10th. The board has the options of adopting the resolution and scheduling the public hearing for September 23rd, adopt the resolution and schedule a public hearing for a later date, or take no action at this time. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so if I understand this, these are some of the zone code provisions that interface with the chicken ordinance, and so the chicken ordinance has triggered us making some adjustments.
Correct. The chicken ordinance allows keeping of hens in a residential zone, and this particular section of zone code prohibits it.
Okay.
Prohibits poultry.
Does this do anything to roosters, or this is totally separate?
That is totally separate.
All right, okay, thanks. Any questions?
I'm trying to make something about, you open up the door to the hen house, things happen. There's certainly something there.
There's a
All
ham
right.
sandwich. Also, Madam Chair, I will move approval of a resolution initiating amendments to the Marion County Code Title 16 Urban Code Zone Code and schedule a public hearing for September 23rd, 2015.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the resolution and schedule the public hearing for September 23rd. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
That
you.
is approved unanimously. Thank you, Joe. And you're going to be back, right? Yes. At 9:30, so. Okay, so that concludes our action items, and we have about 15 minutes before we've noticed the public hearing. Anything anyone wants to tap dance about right now, or do you want to take a break? Or?
Got
Tapping?
a lot of things I could think of, but haven't thought them through.
Do we want to do the calendar right now? Sure,
Doesn't
we
bother
can do-
me, sure.
I'll do the calendar right
Yeah.
now. What the heck? We ready? Okay. So we'll go ahead and read the Wednesday to Wednesday calendar. These are meetings where 2 or 3 commissioners will be present between August 26th and September 2nd, 2015. So we are still in the middle of our board session here at the Senator Hearing Room at Courthouse Square, and it is August 26th. This afternoon at 2:30, we will be over at the Capital Community Television Studios on the corner of Trade and I think it's Church Street. And we will be taping our monthly Marion County Today show, and I believe the topic today is the community health assessment, so health department, and hopefully other people will be there to interview with us. Tomorrow, Thursday, August 27th at 2 is a work session on the 2015 Oregon marijuana legislation. That will be up in the Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor here at Courthouse Square, 555 Court Street, Northeast in Salem. Saturday, August 29th, from 2 to 5 is the Big Toy Celebration at Kaiser Rapids Park in the Big Toy area, 1900 Shamawa Road North in Kaiser, and the program actually starts at 3 o'clock. On August 31st, Monday at 8:15 is new employee orientation welcome in the HR training room, 4th floor, Courthouse Square. At 8:30, Board of Commissioners calendar review in the Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor at Courthouse Square. 9 o'clock management update, Silverton Conference Room, 5th floor, Courthouse Square. 1 o'clock, Pay for Success Steering Committee, but that needs to have a conference room. It just says via conference call, but we need to have a room. Kim, you'll have to talk to Sarah about that, okay? I'm assuming that we'll be either in the Silverton Conference Room or in the Commissioners Boardroom on the 5th floor at Courthouse Square. And then the Mart Beck 37th Avenue Lighting District public hearing will be Monday, August 31st at 2 o'clock, and that's in the Senator Hearing Room, right here, 1st floor on Courthouse Square in Salem. Oops, there's more in the back, sorry. Tuesday, September 1st, BOC-CAO meeting, Silverton Conference Room, 2 o'clock, and there's an executive session if needed. And then back here on September 2nd at 9 a.m. is our regular Wednesday board session in the Senator Hearing Room, followed by the Woodburn-Marion County meeting at Luis's Taqueria on 523 Front Street in Woodburn, followed at 3 o'clock by an Insight Board and Mid-Willamette Jobs Council meeting, and that will be in the Insight Boardroom, 626 High Street Northeast, Suite 305 in Salem. And now we're done. So that took 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So what else do you want to do?
I don't have anything
Shall we,
right
shall
now.
we just recess?
I think that's
Yeah,
the
okay,
easiest.
let's go ahead and recess then until 9:30. You want me to do this? All right, we are going to come out of recess now. It is still Wednesday, August 26, 2015, and we'll now open a public hearing. What did I do with my agenda? Thank you. This is a public hearing to consider appeal of administrative review case number AR 15-003, SAD LLC, clerk's file number 5695. And Joe Fenimore is here to introduce the information.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Joe Fenimore. This item before you
There it is.
is an application to place a dwelling on a 9.67 acre parcel in a farm timber zone. The planning director issued a decision in March 4th, 2015, denying the request. That decision was appealed to the hearings officer, who conducted a public hearing on May 18th. The hearings officer also denied the request. That decision was appealed to the board, and on June 24th, the board accepted the appeal and scheduled a public hearing for today. In the decision, the hearings officer determined that the applicant did not meet all the applicable criteria and standards. The hearings officer discussed the status of the property owner, SAD LLC, and concluded that, was unable to conclude that Penny Wilson had the authority to sign and file the application on behalf of the LLC, and concluded that proof of her authority to act is required in order for the application to be reviewed. The hearings officer explained that an LLC is composed of individual members, and the only members identified at that hearing were Anthony and Sharon DeSantis, both of whom are deceased. In finding 13 on page 9, the hearings officer discusses the criterion that requires the property to have been acquired and continuously owned by the present owner since prior to January 1st of 1985. Once again, the status of the LLC needs to be provided in order to determine if that criterion is met. Finally, on page 19, finding 19 on page 12 of the order, the hearings officer discusses a big game habitat policy that limits development density to no more than one dwelling per 80 acres in major habitat. That density can be doubled to one dwelling per 40 acres if the dwellings are clustered within 200 feet of each other. The policy does not state how to calculate the density, and the process has evolved over the years. Currently, the planning director calculates the density by centering a 640-acre circle on the proposed home site and counts the number of dwellings inside that circle and inside the habitat area. Using that process, planning staff determined the density was about one dwelling unit per 34 acres, which doesn't meet the 80-acre standard. Since 1998, the board has examined several big game habitat cases on an individual basis to determine if there were unique circumstances where the density could be calculated using a different method. that would meet the policy. At the hearing, the applicant submitted 4 maps showing alternative study areas, and they are summarized on page 14 of the order. At the hearings officer stated the applicant must show by substantial evidence in the record why these alternative study areas were reasonable and how they would satisfy the density, and concluded that based on the information provided at that hearing, the big game habitat policy was not met. In the appeal letter, the applicant requested the opportunity to provide additional evidence at an appeal hearing. There's about 20 pages of information in your packet that the applicant submitted last week for you to look at and review. They will go over it when they make their presentation. Options for consideration are to continue the public hearing, close the public hearing and leave the record open, close the hearing and approve, deny, or modify the request, or remand the matter back to the hearings officer. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Joe. Any questions? I have a couple, so don't go yet. Okay, so as you laid out, and I read the hearings officer's report a few days ago, and there's just basically 2 large issues, because the other smaller issues all point back to those 2 issues. So as you said, we have people here, and they're going to comment and provide explanation of this. But my question for you on the first item, the status of the LLC, the authority of the person that signed to sign, has legal counsel reviewed the additional information, and can you verify that this would meet what the hearings officer was looking for?
I had Scott look at the information, and he told me that would satisfy what the hearings officer was asking for.
Okay, so,
If she would have had that information, then that would not have
all right.
been an issue.
So just want to make sure that somebody here would verify that in addition to the testimony. And then the second one is on the big game habitat, which has been how many years since we've had one of those? It's been a long
It's
time.
been a while.
Like
yes.
probably more than 10. So we have a study that's been turned in by Turnstone Environmental Consultants, and I know we'll hear testimony about that. So the question is, has someone from planning reviewed the study and verified the parameters? Because I know in the letter, I think they said that it met the 1 in 80 acres or whatever that standard is.
Yes, I have reviewed the study. The points seem accurate on it. Excuse me. It is a study that you could use to make a finding that policy is met.
Okay, because I guess in my mind, I'm trying to figure out, do I need to remand it back to the hearings officer to review all the stuff? Or can we make the stuff, excuse me, technical term, or can we make that decision today?
I believe you can make that decision today based on that report.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have 3 people that are here in support. Do you want to come up together, or do you want to come up one by one? All right. You can pull up a third chair, or just take one of those comfy chairs if you want to. So if you would go over to this side table.
Are we mic'd here instead of there?
Yeah, we prefer you over here.
Great.
Just the camera picks you up better there. Otherwise, it shows the back of your head, top of your head. Right. All right, so if you would introduce yourself for the record, and then go ahead and make whatever comments that you want to make.
Well, thank you, Commissioners. I'm Eric Wareham,
And I'm Angela DeSantis.
and I am counsel for the petitioners. You did summarize the points pretty well, so I think it's we can get right to it. There's been, the narrative here is that we've needed to provide more information along the way at each step. The 2 issues that we have today are the LLC. In that, there was some confusion about when Tony and Sharon DeSantis passed away, what happened with the property. And it's the issue is whether they devised it in a will, or there was some instrument out there, or whether it was in a trust. So we've cleared that up by providing documentation on the fact that the LLC was set up with 2 trustees as managing members of that LLC. So when they passed away, there was no devise in the will, there was no issue there, it was really in the trust. Penny DeSantis is the trustee for that.
Wilson.
Or trustee Penny Wilson, sorry. And she has authority to devise the property or convey the property however she sees fit. So that clears up that issue. We presented that, and it seems like you guys are okay on that. If you have any questions, we can address that issue before moving to the
All right, so
Big game
legal
habitat.
counsel is signaling that it's sufficient. So I don't have any questions about it, but I'm not qualified to review all the paperwork, and it's been a while since we've done Measure 37 claims, so that's why I want to rely on our legal counsel to verify what you're saying, so everybody's in agreement.
Sure. All right, great. And then so I think if there's no questions on that, the second issue that we'll move on to is the big game habitat analysis. So I'm very familiar with the property, and the emphasis here that we have on the big game habitat is that the deterrents for the big game habitat are towards the highway, Silver Falls Highway. I'm sure you've all been up there as good county commissioners, visited our wonderful state park. This house is, less than a quarter mile from the highway itself. And all the houses on DeSantis Lane are clustered towards the highway. This would add to that. So when we drew the big game habitat, the true habitat, the reality is that the elk are located at the end of DeSantis Lane and back towards the Silver Falls Canyon, which is part of the park. And that's their natural migratory habitat. This house, or the home site that you're considering today, is in an area where there's a busy road. It's located right on that road. There's other houses already in that area. There's dogs barking, there's hunting. There's a lot of pressure there. So you truly never see any elk crossing there. They're located towards the back in the seed fields, and then towards the state park itself, which they have lots of habitat to move that area because it's 15,000 acres for them to roam freely instead of being encumbered by towards the highway. So I don't know if you guys have any questions about that, how we centered that or how it was devised. And we had an ungulate specialist who prepared the report and stated that there will be no impact. So if you have any questions for us, we'd like to address them for you.
Any questions on the big game habitat study? So were you here when we did the big game habitat study? Might have been even Mike Ryan that was
The
here.
only time it came up, we were talking about Brighton Bush.
Right.
So years
Well,
ago.
the case that I was involved in, they actually had like what are those things that you used to use at school that had the point and then you drew a
Protractor.
protractor, right, yeah. And you had to do a circle, right? And then they had like red dots where all the different animals were. And then the question was whether you could do a figure eight or whether you could do a square. And, I mean, it was just this long extended geometry conversation. And then when we got done, I think, and that's what I was reading in the hearings officer report, so it brought back memories that they said you could do it on a case-by-case basis and it didn't actually have to be a perfect circle. And so I leave it to the experts to figure out those things. And my main concern is that if we were challenged that in another jurisdiction, they would look at this material and say, this meets the standards and you wouldn't fail on appeal. So, so you feel confident that this study gives you that backing?
Yeah, very much so. I think this is, the big game habitat study is determinative on the issue.
Okay. I think we're good on that. I have one more question. There were a list of conditions that were in our packet. Have you seen those list of conditions?
Yes.
You have any concerns about any of them?
No, they look pretty standard
Okay.
to me.
And how the property is situated with neighboring properties, none of them would be an issue for any location of a dwelling or exterior buildings.
Okay, great. And I think, Joe, you'll just walk through those conditions really quickly when you come back up. Is that right? Okay. Very good. So any other questions for the witnesses here?
No. Just thank you for putting the material together. There's
Makes
two
our job
items.
easy, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Commissioners.
thank you.
So anyone else want to testify? You're just happy where you are? Okay. So Joe, will invite you to come back up.
Questions?
Tell us about the conditions. Make
Okay,
sure we
these are-
put all that on the record.
All right, these are very standard conditions with this type of approval. If the hearings officer or planning director would have approved this request, these are the conditions we would attach. The first one is the expiration date. It's 4 years from the day the decision becomes final, and that's out of state law. It can be extended for 2 years if it's not done by that time, if you request an extension before the 4 years is up. You have to obtain all building permits and septic site evaluations from building inspection. You have to file a Farm Forest declaratory statement. And that's that statement that says you're not going to interfere with or complain about normal farming and forest activities in the area. You have to, by state law, you have to provide evidence of an event seek water supply, basically the well log. And then number 5 is the special setbacks, 200 feet for the house from adjacent properties and farmer forest use, 100 feet for any accessory structure. Number 6 is the fire siting standards, and that's once again pretty much out of state law. Fire retardant roof, not on a slope greater than 40%. Chimneys have to have a spark arrestor, those kind of items. And those are the standard conditions for this type of case.
And we've heard that there are no concerns about them, so they will go into the final order.
If the request is approved, then I will prepare the final order and bring it back to you with this as conditions, yes.
Okay. Any other questions for Joe?
No, other than, and I'm not doing it, I'd usually like a recommendation. It always bothers me when there's none, and I think he'd now say, yes, I won't put you on the spot. Well, go ahead, just say you would recommend it now.
I would recommend it now,
Thank
yes.
you. So, Madam Chair, hearing that, I would like to make a motion to close the public hearing to accept the appeal of, and what do we actually do, overturn? Approve
Let's
the
see.
request for AR 15003 SAD LLC, clerk's file 5695, approving their request. Does that work?
Okay, so we're going to approve the application, right? That's what you
Yes.
said?
Tried to.
Okay. So we had did you second that yet?
Well, just a point of clarification, is this the modified application, modified proposal, or?
I don't think we modified it at all, so what we're
Correct.
doing
Just
is,
accepting the new information to
Right.
approve the existing. Okay, I'll
Right.
second the motion.
so we have a motion and a second. We're closing the public hearing. That's easy. We're approving the application with the conditions that have been listed here. So that's probably you're right. It is modified in the sense that we've
I agree
added
to that too,
those
it's fine.
conditions.
Right.
And in light of the additional evidence that's been provided here at the hearing. So any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All right, you're approved.
Thank you.
15 minutes, that's good. All right.
All this time.
All right. And I don't have to read the Wednesday to Wednesday calendar because we already did that. So anything else for the good of the order? Anything you want to talk about? Drought or?
I'm tired of talking about it, but it's still out there. But we should maybe find out if there's a little relief just this weekend. So I hope it is enough. Barry, if you could hang around, I'd like to visit with you a minute.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
Anything else? All right, good. We're adjourned.